Good day, good people. You're listening to Lifting the Veil. This is your host, Cari-Lee. The date today is the 10th of October, 2011. You probably won't hear this till about the 11th or the 12th, as we're putting our shows out a bit differently than we used to be. You can hear the show on www.freethinkradio.com, at earthforall.net, and at canadianawareness.org. Today on the show, we have Rob of the family Paget joining us from, he is one of the individuals, or the individual that was centered around the film UNGRIP. Welcome, Rob. How are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for coming on to the show. Now, I guess, first of all, thank you for for collaborating with Ben and putting together such an amazing film that shows not only what you're going through in your journey towards sovereignty, but the emotional and spiritual journey that you're on as well. I've been getting nothing but positive feedback from people, and they're just so thankful for somebody that's putting this type of information out there, and the idea that people are really ready for it right now is fantastic. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been an extremely emotional journey for me too. The feedback I've been getting has been overwhelming. The gratitude and appreciation, and just the heart deep, emotional, raw feelings that people are sharing with me has been just, I don't know, I just don't have words for it. It's been amazing.
That's beautiful, though. It helps you to see that you're definitely on the right path if you needed testimony from other people, which, I mean, I'm not sure that you do, because it's nice to have, though.
Yeah, it was a confirmation that, we did the right thing. I was very leery about doing it. In fact, when Ben and I were first talking about doing the film like 2 years ago, he came out and he was doing some videotaping, and you'll see that in the film with all the winter scenes. Mm-hmm. That was his first time he was out here, and then that summer I thought, you know what, I can't do this, and I called Ben up and I said, no, I can't do this, and he was disappointed. But, I was scared and unsure of myself, and, it was a tough decision. But that following, like, the spring of 2010, I did a lot of growing, and I think he would say the same thing too. And so I called him back up and I go, you know what, Ben, I'm ready to do this now. And so he came back out for another trip for the summertime, and that would be all the summer scenes that you see in the film. And, it took a lot of work to get everything all done up, and, there's a lot of work, a lot of delays, and, kind of humming and hawing and trying to get things to flow properly and that kind of stuff. And I kept telling Ben, don't worry about it. It is what it is. It'll come out when, it needs to come out, and the timing will be perfect, and I have faith that whatever you do, it will be absolutely perfect. And, Ben did the vast majority of the work on that film. My contribution was mainly just sitting in front of the camera and sharing my story. The flow of the film and the graphic work and the music is all, himself and his brother and his band, and I have. Well,
don't sell your part short, because without you there would have been no film in the first place.
True.
Something we're all very grateful for, I might add.
I'm sure. He's the artist though, and I have a deep respect for the artistic view and the vision that he had for this film right from the beginning. Like, he's the one that contacted me and asked me to be a part of it. So
he did a fantastic job.
A beautiful job, and I feel he presented my story extremely well, and I'm very happy with the work that he's done. And I consider him a very true friend, and I just love him to pieces.
That's beautiful, and that's something that you can tell in the film, that there really is a camaraderie between the two of you. I picked up on it. A few friends that I've talked to have picked up on it, and obviously you'd have to trust each other with these intimate moments of your life, and your journey through this whole, like I said, sovereign quest or freedom quest. I don't know what you would call it, but it's very personal, and it's something that I can understand why you'd be afraid to share. A fear is one of those things that's very hard to let go of sometimes, and I'm very happy that you came upon your own awareness and self-confidence, that you were ready to put this out there. There's a great many people that are grateful to both yourself and Ben and Dan for what you've put together. Artistically, it comes off as beautifully. As far as information goes, I don't think that anybody could have asked for anything better, as something that we can show all of our friends and family. It's not scary. It's very it's put across in a way that's beautiful and speaks directly to the soul about what it's taken for you to come to where you are now. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about what has brought you to this point where you are now.
Well, me sharing my story is something that didn't come easy for me for most of my life. I suffered from depression for 30 years, and it wasn't until my early 30s that I finally had an opportunity to participate in a program to help me deal with my depression and my suicide attempts and drug abuse and the addictions that I had. And part of that process was to learn how to share my story and take the risk, because if I don't risk sharing deep, intimate parts of my life, then I can't really have any deep, intimate relationships with anybody. And that is what pretty much helped me decide, what, I'm going to take a risk here, and I'm going to share with people my story, and we'll see what happens. And my recovery from depression taught me a lot of things about myself and how to have those healthy relationships, and that was a key part of me being able to get back together again with my wife. We did a lot of work to make that happen, but it wouldn't have happened any other way if we didn't be honest with one another and share how we feel and be honest and that kind of stuff.
A lot of people are very afraid to speak out or to speak up and tell what their truths are and what the honesty that's inside of them. Now, there's a lot of people that we discussed privately earlier that we've both gone through similar things as far as going through depression and self-medicating and whatnot. I had shared with you that it was very easy for me to turn around and take a drink in order to calm, we'll say, my nerves, when in reality I was just suppressing what I needed to have brought out. I'm going to ask that maybe you share what you feel. I mean, something that's the people that are going through this right now, because there are people that I see that are going through the same type of depression. What would be your advice to them? I mean, not advice, but from your own personal standpoint, from what you went through, what words of comfort can you give to these people that might be going through something very similar at this time?
Well, I don't think it even matters whether we talk about people who are afraid of the information that was in the film or afraid of things that are going on in the world or even in their own lives. One of the things I felt when I was going through depression, that I was all alone and that nobody could relate to what I'm feeling and that kind of stuff. But when I started sharing my story and sharing how I felt, I found out that a lot of people felt the same way, and now all of a sudden I don't feel quite as alone as I used to. And I found through my experience is that we all have the same kind of challenges and dealing with the same, similar feelings. The circumstances may be different, or different levels of severity and that kind of stuff. But in the end, we're all dealing with the same kind of thing. And I found that sharing my feelings, sharing how I felt through the process, and I tried to do that in the film as well too. And the anxiety and the fear and that kind of stuff too. I found that, rather than using an addiction, whether drugs or alcohol or sex or TV or computers or any of that kind of stuff, I use those to distract myself. And since then I've learned to not use that as a crutch and just face the feelings. And feelings aren't good or bad. They are what they are. How we react to our feelings can turn, even a good feeling into a bad reaction. And so I try really hard to process a feeling and accept it and listen to it and acknowledge it and then work through it rather than trying to suppress it.
And then not hold on to it for too long, too. I'm sure a lot of people will hold on to certain things. Maybe the idea of, I love the title of the film, UNGRIP, because there's so much that you have to let go of.
Yeah.
And holding on to any one feeling is going to do as much damage as not dealing with it at all.
Yeah, and letting go is extremely important, and that's where the ironic part of the title of the film comes in my view, is it has nothing to do with all the stuff out there. It's within the self, and letting go of all of that stuff within the self so that you can really get down to who you are and why you're here and learn from that process. And the more you hold on to it, the more power you actually give away. And that is in part of the trap that we find ourselves in.
And it's silly when you think that we set these traps up for ourselves half the time.
It's all within ourselves. Like,
yeah.
All of the traps, all the slavery, all of the problems we have, it's ourselves.
Could you repeat going back to the seminar, the one friend in the seminar, please?
That means that I have nobody else to blame but myself. And if an individual can accept that, then I believe that's the first step to taking 100% responsibility and 100% accountability for my life and, for individuals like yourself or people listening.
The idea that we have absolute personal responsibility for everything that we accept or don't accept. Something that comes out of the first chapter in the film, The Troubles That Beset Man, is the idea that if you're dependent or controlled in any way, you're not free. And it actually is your responsibility to recognize whether you are dependent or controlled by anything, because no one's going to sit there and tell you.
Right, and for the last year or so, I use the analogy of a child and an adult, which you've seen in the film too. And I realize that as long as we're dependent on other people, we're kind of behaving like children. And to be an adult would require that one grow up and take responsibility for all of these things in our lives, whether it's economically, but also even emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally as well too. And for myself, through most of my life, I was physically mature, but I was nowhere near emotionally or mentally mature. And that mental and emotional maturity didn't occur until I was 33 years old. And now that I've done that, now I can start working towards spiritual maturity and building interdependent relationships with other independent people without building dependencies. And that's been a huge struggle for me over the last number of years.
The idea of instead of dependence, collaboration instead of dependence sharing. It's not the idea of we need to be dependent on each other. We all have to learn to share with each other.
Yeah.
Because if we're sharing, then it's not, you're not expecting anything.
Yeah, and that's where there's a difference, a paradigm shift between the current capitalistic model and, where the corporations deal with scarcity, and a prosperity type model where there's lots to go around and we can share with one another, and we don't have to worry about any scarcity.
No, definitely. Now, you were saying that it was very difficult to get to where you were through all of your depression and whatnot. But did you find that you needed to be naked in front of it all, so to speak, in a way, and have everything stripped away in order to get to that next step and that next level? It wouldn't have worked any other way. It couldn't be given to you. You had to strip everything away from within yourself. And once again, the idea of the title UNGRIP, it's just beautiful because you're constantly tearing away at yourself, correct?
Yeah. There's no secrets, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Special areas that are sacred. It was just expose everything. And that was one of the things that, I found within the groups I was helping me out with is you couldn't hide behind nothing. And when you expose yourself like that, it's very scary because, I was afraid of being hurt and being exposed and being vulnerable. But I found that fear actually didn't actually manifest. It didn't actually happen. And so as a result, I learned to trust in the process, and so now I freely share everything in my life. I'm not afraid to talk to people about my depression or my vulnerabilities or any of that kind of stuff. My experience has been over the last 10 years, when I share, people actually appreciate and actually have a higher respect for me because I did that. And it's been completely opposite of the public perception that it's a taboo subject and people don't like talking about it. And I found the complete opposite to be true.
Oh, I think that people that are looking for this type of information and are willing to accept it and are at this stage are definitely going to embrace it. And the ones that aren't are the ones that are still playing quite a bit in the idea of ego and having to be right and having to... the idea of tearing apart their walls is just far too frightening to them. Anybody that isn't ready to take this information in yet, there's very good reason for it, because they are still trapped very much in... They have themselves very much trapped in the illusion of what is.
There's an idea where we see this information as energy, and sometimes the energy is too much for people to take, and I kind of like using the word, the person can't take the charge, because it might be, too emotionally traumatic for them, or they're just not ready to process that kind of information. And my view is, that's okay. That's just where they're at in their journey, and I planted the seed, and it will grow if it can grow, and I'll just move on and do what we can to find people that can take the charge and hold the charge.
Definitely. Now, you'd said that this has been very trying on your relationships. With your wife in particular, there was a point of separation between the two of you while you went through all of your struggles. How is that now? How is the journey to get to where now is?
Well, we were separated for about 3 years because of my destructive behavior. I was abusive, not physically, but emotionally abusive, passive-aggressive, very controlling, manipulative type individual. And so we separated, and we were nearly divorced, but at that point I kind of surrendered and started to change and learn how to have healthy relationships and be honest with myself and that sort of thing. And she also went through her own process too, and after I had recovered from my depression and got to a point where I was comfortable with who I was, we started talking again and started working on the relationship, and through a lot of hard work and talking for 2-3 hours a night for months on end, we were able to work through all the crap that happened in our past relationship and build on a new foundation of mutual respect and challenge another and healthy. It's the homeopathic education that she got too that also brought a great deal of health into our relationship. And ironically enough, it was that education that introduced us to some of the concepts that we're now living by and quite happily living by.
It's nice because you see that it takes both of you in order to walk this path together. You're both as necessary as the other one. One is not more important than the other. It's together that you're taking the trek, so to speak.
That is the only way we could have done this. I've seen over the last number of years many couples separating because one partner couldn't take the charge of this type of information, and it's just heartbreaking to see this happen because the other individual sees what I see, and they want to try to make some changes in their life, and the other partner isn't willing, and that's tough to do this kind of work. Both people have to be on the same page and working together and willing to do that too.
I can speak from my own experience. My husband and I are different in our thought processes, but we work together, and where he doesn't understand certain things in the sovereign path, he doesn't shun it, but he makes a point of saying, I don't get that, and then we sit and we have greater discussions about it, and certain things that I don't get about whatever he's speaking in, and say permaculture or something to that effect, I'm able to better understand because of him. So together, we're like I said earlier about your wife and yourself, we're walking this path together, and again, we couldn't be doing it any other way. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. I have skills and abilities that she doesn't have, and she has skills and abilities that I don't have, and we complement each other very well, and we plug in some of the deficiencies that we have within ourselves so that we can come to a greater understanding and a greater involvement in the life that we're trying to make out here.
Definitely. Now, how about your kids? Where do your children stand in all of this? How did they take all of these changes that you've come about?
Our boys have been taught both sides, and so I can't force my will upon them. So I taught them both sides, and they'll have to make a decision, one way or another, how they want to lead their lives. They both kind of are at a point right now where they're scratching their head because they kind of see some of the insanity in the way things are going right now, and so they struggled because it's been financially tough for a teenager, not having the things that most other teenagers have and that sort of thing. But I think for the most part they have a pretty good grasp of what's going on, and they understand why we're doing what we're doing, and they've been very supportive, and they've been helping us out, and we homeschool our kids, and the education of building an Earthship and raising livestock and gardening and all this kind of stuff. I have no doubt that when they're ready to go out on their own, that they can look after themselves and their families without any problems.
And that that's beautiful, because the majority of people are not raising their children this way. How many children don't actually put their hands into soil to plant a seed or to harvest from a plant at the end of the season? These are things that we should be teaching our children. Now, the idea of the Earthship interests me to no end, and being able to see a bit of that in the film was absolutely fantastic. Now, where are you in the Earthship building process right now?
Well, we started back in 2008, but we're doing everything out of pocket. So there's no mortgages, no debts or anything like that. So, the house isn't finished yet, but we've been living in it now for about 3 years, and it keeps us warm and it keeps us dry. And, when we get a little bit of money, we'll, add a little bit more to it. Process is slow, but my thought was, why would I, go get a mortgage and work for 30 years when, I can just work for myself and, build one in 5 or 10 years.
Right.
And then, all that effort is for me and my family and not going to some faceless corporation, right? So.
Well, yeah, that's very frustrating. The idea that any mortgage is just being paid to some kind of, like you said, faceless corporate entity that just serves nothing but the corporation.
Yeah. I also found, though, that the Earthship was pivotal in our desire to be free and remove those dependencies, because it allowed us to unplug from the power grid and the gas grid and water and sewage and all that kind of stuff. So I talk about dependencies in the show, and I talked about the definition of slave. And so what we did is we actually did an inventory and saw where all our money was going, and that was a clear indication to us that we had many, many, many dependencies. And ironically, they were all to a corporation in one form or another. So the Earthship allowed us to remove a lot of those dependencies. I can't say quite easily because it was a lot of hard work to build an Earthship, but it was a simple way of doing it.
Right. And now you actually lived in like a trailer while the Earthship was being built in the first stages, correct?
Yeah, we actually lived in a small little trailer while we built a garage, and then we lived in the garage for a couple of years to build Earthship. So it's a process, because when we came out here, it was nothing but farmer's field and bush, so everything out here we built ourselves. We were essentially homesteading. If you can imagine the old homesteaders coming out to absolutely nothing to start fresh.
Yeah, the idea of the only difference being that you're not in a horse and buggy, but you've got your RV kind of type thing.
Yeah.
Which is the modern homesteader now, I guess
Yeah.
you would say. And that's really beautiful. Now, was it very expensive for things like, say, the tires, or these are all are some of the stuff that you're able to get a matter of getting scrap? Because I was thinking about this the other day, and the idea that they have these big, huge tire piles and tire fires and tire this. And are you able to just get used tires for free, or is it something that you had to pay for?
You can pick them up for free if you're willing to drive around and get them.
Okay.
We made a whole bunch of mistakes when we were doing this. Because when we sold our house in the city, we had some money, so we decided to, instead of running around, I literally purchased a great big huge truckload of tires from exactly that, a place where they stockpile them to produce other products and recycle them. And, you saw that picture in the film where, the guy couldn't even get in our yard, so he just dumped them all onto the county road.
Right.
But, the biggest mistake we made is we built the house first rather than building our economy first. So, we ran out of money, and that's why the house isn't done. What we should have done is, worked on building our economy and getting, some energy flow going so that we can sustain, long-term project of, building like this. And otherwise, right now we're kind of scrambling right now trying to build an economy so we can keep things going. So that would be
now sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would be one thing I would do differently.
Well, and it's good that you're putting that out there so people understand that, no, you didn't just come upon this in the most perfect way. It has been a struggle. It has been a learning experience. Now, about that, what exactly are you doing right now for building your own economy? How are you going about having an economy within your own nation or your own sovereignty?
Well, we, raise chickens and we sell eggs, and we just got some goats. I also hold classes to teach what I've learned and try to help people through the process. And in the past I've taught Taekwondo, and I just pretty much do whatever I can think of to bring my talents and my experience or my knowledge to bear to help other people, and hopefully make a living doing that, so that we can deal with some of the dependencies that we still have, and try to build those relationships so that we can eventually even get rid of some of those dependencies. And it's a process.
Definitely. And now your wife, is she still doing what she had gone to school for?
Yeah, she studied to be a homeopath, and she was practicing, but she's now kind of looking after the livestock that we have in the gardens, and I got bees as well too. So that takes a lot of time to look after and manage that properly. So
definitely, and that's fantastic that you have bees. That makes me very happy. Because everybody knows that the cell phone towers and the waves being emitted from there hurting the bees, and it just makes me happy. We've actually been looking at, my husband's been looking into putting a bee home box type thing on the roof, because there's different ways that you can do it. Do you have like the normal type of, how are you going about raising bees there? That's the way I'll put it.
Well, I have my bees in a commercial box, a beehive. But, I took a course last year about beekeeping, and, they teach you about, treating them with certain chemicals to deal with mites and bacteria and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of thought, what, let's do this a different way. Like, I understand why they're doing it, and I'm going to be very consciously aware of the health of my bees and that sort of thing. But what I'm doing is I'm not giving them any chemicals. I'm not smoking my bees.
Excellent.
We're trying to allow them to build up their own immunity and their own strength, and just trust that they can figure it out and they'll work it out somehow. And Cari can treat them homeopathically. So I'm doing a bit of an experiment here to see if I can actually make a difference and actually have a hive of bees that can build some resilience and solve some of these problems that the bee industry is facing right now.
And how did this season go? How would you gear your process so far?
Well, we didn't get a lot of honey, but the honey we did get tasted amazing.
That's what I like to hear.
Oh, it was. The people that tasted it, they're just flabbergasted with how good that honey tasted.
Because there was absolutely no chemical in it. You were treating them. Oh, it was the understanding that I'm just picturing it all in my head right now. The bee is no different than you, and you wouldn't want chemicals spewed on you, and you're going to be a better producer if you don't have all of these added toxins on you. So that's absolutely fantastic. Understanding that it's all one big symbiosis.
Sure. And we also made sure that the bees weren't beside any GMO crops or anything like that. They were feeding off of wildflowers and, volunteer canola, and I have an alfalfa out there too. And so it was just absolutely the best tasting honey I've ever had.
Oh, that's fantastic. I actually found out this year that bees like borage, borage, and the leaves off of them taste like cucumber. and they have these beautiful blue flowers, and you can plant them in between your tomatoes and like your viney things like zucchinis and squash and whatnot. And the bees just loved it. Actually, I can say in my back corner I had bees and frogs and toads and so much life where it was just, and using heirloom seeds, non-GMO. It was just beautiful, the life that I found in my yard.
Yeah. Cool.
Now, disclosed TV, you actually reached the top 5 out of 10 for films. That's absolutely fantastic. And in just 9 days?
It was released on the 1st, so today would be day 10, and I think that was released yesterday. So, within a week of the release of the film, we were hitting top 5. So it's amazing.
It is. It's absolutely, and another testimony to the fact that what you're doing is being well received by others. Now, let's talk a bit about some of the positive and negative that's coming your way because of this and how you're dealing with it.
Well, the responses have been mixed, and I knew that a film like this would pretty much split people down the middle. Either you're going to love it or hate it. And I was preparing myself for that. The responses I've been getting through Facebook and email and through my website, it's been overwhelming, really. Feelings and raw emotions that people are sharing, the gratitude. It's actually been quite exhausting for me for the last week, and because it takes time and energy to process emotions like that too, right?
Oh, definitely.
But I've been grateful and trying very hard to respond to everybody and acknowledge the courage and the time it took to even sit down and write something, and for people to share. It's been moving, and I've been in tears, just crying with the emotions that have been flowing out of this film.
And there have been so many emotions. I mean, of just the response that I've been getting when I'm posting it or talking about it with people. It's just, you have some people that are very angry because they're coming to this all of a sudden, and they don't understand it, so they're, going through their own processes. But most people are, they're in line to, this is the next step, and it must be just overwhelming to see how much beautiful love that you have being poured towards you.
So much so that I'm having a hard time putting it into words, and I'm not sure what to say. Like, it's humbling to say the least. I never imagined that I would have or the film or Ben's and my work would have this kind of impact on people. And to be honest, I really still don't know really how to process it and to deal with it, other than thank you, and just let it flow, and it is what it is, and just appreciate people taking time to share that with me.
I can imagine just very deep gratitude, and that's beautiful. Now, as far as the negative that's coming at you, how do you see that as transpiring within the person, just from your own perspective, and how are you dealing with that?
Well, I kind of have a unique position to see, when people are hurting or when they're angry or when they're scared. Mainly because I've been there and done that myself. For the people that are having a hard time with the film, all I can really say is, I can see where they're coming from, and mainly because I've been there and done that. I had my own, fear reaction and anger and frustration and, that kind of stuff through my depression, but also even when I first learned about this information, or frustration because, it was hard to get information from people or get the help, and, so I would lash out or, get frustrated too. But for me, all I can really do is acknowledge that that's where they're at. They have their own path, their own journey, and, they'll work it out one way or another. And, just to acknowledge that, they're on, a different part of the journey, and I can't really help them because I can't affect free will. I can't change anybody but myself, so it doesn't make sense for me to even try. So all I could really do is share my story, and if it resonates with people, great. If it doesn't, great. I hope I can influence people by taking the risk and sharing that story, and we'll see what happens from it.
Definitely, and you can't take anybody else's, we'll say, baggage on because it's not yours. Everything that they're feeling is more of a reflection of what they're seeing from the inside of themselves than the information that you're sharing with them.
Right. And that's, comes back to the title of the film. I just have to let that go, and I can't hold on to that. Otherwise, that consumes a tremendous amount of energy, and I'd rather place my energy and my focus somewhere else.
Definitely. Now, as we go through the film, you're showing us your journey, your personal journey. And we see that all of the suffering that you're going through, and not in the way that we necessarily perceive suffering, but it's all to help you to grow, and it has helped you to grow into where you are now, and you'll just expand from there, because people need to understand that this film was only one part of your journey, more or less. I was curious as to how people are treating you in your general vicinity, how the city's treating you now. If you have people from, say, city council coming to you and trying to look for information, this interests me a bit. Do you have people that are a bit higher up in rankings in the corporate world that are coming to you and saying, hey, I'm interested in what you're talking about. Could you maybe help me out a bit?
That hasn't happened to date. I suspect that will happen now that the film has been out. Nobody locally has been approaching me, say people that are part of local council or provincial politicians or even federal agents or anything like that. Since the film has come out, though, I have had, a barrister approached me and asked me to teach them what I've been teaching, which is interesting to say the least. But for the most part, it's been mainly individuals who kind of heard my story and, are interested in, my experiences and how they can start implementing some of the stuff in their own life.
That's well, and that kind of makes sense to me, because I would think that the others would be a bit more lost in the lie than the rest of us might be, because they're living it every day.
Yeah, and I suspect too that, if they're not ready for this, they may also kind of find it threatening, because, as people remove their dependency, those that are dependent on the state for their jobs, truth be told, if nobody needed them anymore, then they're out of a job, and that could be threatening for a lot of people.
It's funny. And just all of a sudden in my head, I thought of the term midlife crisis. And I was wondering why midlife crisis happens. And I think, and this is just random, but I think that it has a lot to do with awakening to what all this is, and then turning it around in some type of materialistic self-expression, instead of maybe taking a look deeper within to understand why it is that we're feeling the way that we are. Because it's like an ongoing skit about, men and women both going through these, midlife crises. And maybe now we have a better way of understanding what these crises actually are. They're our spirit trying to talk to us, and our hearts screaming for attention to some extent. I don't know. Like I said, that was very random. It was just something that I felt that I had to share.
Well, and just to expand on it, it could very well be that there's going to be certain phases in our life where we have to ask the question like, what's the point? Why are we here? What do we want to do with our life? And it's no different than the transition that a child makes into teenagehood and then into adulthood, and the growth doesn't stop there. It continues on as we get older, and I view the work that I've done. I spent a lot of time working on myself and trying to get myself healthy, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And now I feel I'm at a point now where it's time for me to expand that comfort zone and share my story outside of myself into my community, so that I can work on something that's bigger and greater than myself.
And I think that that's more beautiful than anything about this entire journey, is that you understand that this is something that comes completely from within and that must be shared.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about it too is, I kind of use the analogy, to build a muscle, you need resistance. And, that's what gravity provides us for, is we need that resistance so we can build strength in our muscle. And our intellect is no different. Our emotions are no different. And our spiritual body is no different too. We need that resistance. And I see everything that's going on out there as, tough love to provide that resistance so that we can gain strength in all four aspects of our being. And, I'm trying to reach out to people and show them that that's the way I see it, and it's not good or bad, it just is. And out of it, we will all become stronger as a result.
I have to agree with you completely in that. Now you see what's going on, and it's been just amplified since January of this year, the riots, the protests. Everybody's just out in droves right now, screaming for change and understanding that everything's upside down and backwards. And at the end of the interview that I did with Ben last week, he had let out something quite beautiful, that in Los Angeles they had done a guerrilla-style type viewing of the movie UNGRIP, which is just fantastic. Can you imagine if every single Wall Street movement right now were to play that on a wall somewhere during their protest? They'd have an even better understanding, because I'm sure that some people, they don't quite understand what it completely entails. They're just angry at the state that things are in. But if they were to watch, say the film guerrilla style, as Ben put it, then they might have a little bit more of a wake up as to why exactly it is that they're out there, and then they can take that next step. And I see that that's happening. Obviously, if it's already been done in Los Angeles, I'm sure it's just spreading like wildfire, as you're seeing. So it's this film couldn't have come out at a better time.
Yeah, I would agree. And in regards to the protests, I view this as a very healthy part of the process. When you first learn about this stuff, you can get angry, and I went through that anger and that frustration, not knowing what to do. And I just see the protests as people are at that point right now where, okay, they need to express some of that frustration, or speak up and say something. And the next step then is for them to find the realization that they're not going to find the remedy by trying to change the system or change other people or how they behave. I believe that the film, or their own experience and other teachers and individuals will help them through the process to say, okay, now let's empower the individual to make the changes for themselves and grow up to be that adult and take a full 100% responsibility and 100% accountability. And when we can do that, then we'll realize, it doesn't matter what they do. Power is within myself to make those changes, and I can do that without them.
Definitely. Well, the idea that there is nothing in between God and man. There is nothing between the Creator and myself and yourself. Nothing stands in between us. We are, the way that you put it, as being royalty under God. There is nothing in between. We don't need any of these corporations standing in between us. It's a choice. And, with the last statement from the poem that Ben did in the film being the only thing left, like all that is left only to UNGRIP. And you had mentioned that, we have so many masters, and we don't even realize what it is that's controlling us. The idea that we are masters to other people and their authority, our fears, our angers, our wants, and the difference between our wants and needs. A lot of people don't see that even something as simple as when somebody angers you, they have control. And you don't have to give that control to them, because that's not, it has nothing, whatever they're projecting has nothing to do with you.
Right.
And the idea that we have to let go of our masters that we're serving is a great self-realization. Or is part of great self-realization, I should say.
Yeah, and a very difficult process to do, because, when you live without being consciously aware of all this stuff, to all of a sudden bring it into your consciousness, it's kind of like learning how to drive a car. It's very stressful, and you have to put 100% of your conscious thought into this one activity, and it's not until it becomes a habit and you start working through it and living that way that you can then start to move it back into your subconscious, because now it's been reprogrammed, right? So being consciously aware of all of these influences that emotions have, and feelings, and that kind of stuff. It takes a lot of time and energy, and having people around you to call you on your, if I can use the word, call you on your shit.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
that helps in the process. And it's, I have friends of mine that call me on my crap, and I call them on their crap, and that's an important part of the process.
Well, without that, then we are mirror reflections of each other.
Right.
And criticism is wonderful. Is lovingly given criticism, right?
Constructive.
Not to put a person down, but to help them to be better as an individual. You had said that life is about our connections to people and the earth, ourselves, and that you had said that you see it for what it is, you forgive yourself, and you just move on. And that's something that, going back to that, not holding on to anything, you take it in, you process it, and then you let it go and move forward without forgetting the lesson, but making sure that you don't repeat the mistake.
Right. Yeah. Not sure what else to add to that.
Oh, that's nice. I'm really, you showing that the solution is within. This is something that is amplified all over the world. Excuse me. I think that it's something that more and more people are feeling, that you can't get any of your answers outside of yourself anymore. It just leads to more confusion. And it's time to completely act as individuals instead of machines.
Right. I believe the solution's simple. It's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, but it's simple. And you're not going to find solutions out there. Like, I tell people, don't believe a word I say. Don't trust me. Go do your own research. Go figure it out for yourself. I set up a website and I set up a Facebook page, myself and my team. You're not going to find the solution on the website or on my Facebook wall. I have that there to share my story, so maybe you can pull a few gems out of it and find some truths for yourself. But your freedom and your liberty and your sovereignty and your ability to govern yourself will not be found in those pages. It's going to be found when you look in the mirror and realize that you are your only and biggest problem, and if you can accept that, then you can start making changes and find what you're looking for.
I completely agree with that sentiment, 100%. What I found interesting, because I'm still learning, obviously, and I had no idea that Canada was the waters and not the land, and maybe I just put it out of my head because it seems like something that I should have known, but I didn't understand that Canada is really just the waters that are within it and surrounding it.
Well, Canada is just a corporation. It's just a mental construct in our mind. It's a creation of ours, and it's like a game. You can sit down and play the game, but you can also lose yourself in the game too. And I believe we've lost ourselves in the game. But if we can stand back and see it for what it is, then we can realize that it's just a fiction. It's just make believe.
When it's a de facto corporation that we've just accepted.
Right. As being real.
And when in fact it has absolutely no legitimacy at all except for the power that we've given it.
No. One of my friends, he asked me the question, he said, "Hey Rob, how many cars did GM make last year?" I have no idea. Billions? And he goes, "Nope, none. The corporation did not make a darn thing because the corporation is just a piece of paper. Who made the cars? We did. Man is the creation behind all the things that we have, not all these corporations. But we all hide behind this mask, this I can get into some of the definitions of the words if you want me to get into that. But,
yes, please, by all means, go ahead.
A corporation comes from the word corpus, which is a corpse. And that's why we need lawyers. If you read Blackstone Commentaries that was written back in the 1700s, he explains that the only reason we have lawyers is because these dead bodies can't talk, so they need somebody to talk for them. So you can imagine what you do when you hire a lawyer. Even the word person comes from the word persona, which is a mask. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about these corporation souls, like each one of us has one, where we've taken these corporations, these dead bodies, and we've wrapped these dead bodies around ourselves, and we put a mask on, pretending and acting to be something that's dead. And I had a revelation the other day where if we can see them for what they are, and then we can take these masks off and take these dead bodies off and stop pretending to be dead and actually be alive and live. I asked you that question, what is that defined as? Well, technically, that's the definition of a resurrection.
Yeah. No, that was the beautiful part of it, being the idea of being born again into your own self and understanding that you're not that dead corpse. And that you end up burying that and you're reborn, or as you said, resurrected into self.
Right. And I believe that we're, to resurrect ourselves. Nobody else can do that for us. And that's part of the Christ consciousness that I believe is flowing over the face of the earth right now, where people are starting to wake up and realize that, this is taking place, and, we're still trying to figure out how to do that, but I think we're well on our way to accomplishing it.
I have to agree with you on that, and we spoke about this a bit in privately. I'm fully attuned with that Christ consciousness and understanding that it's all within ourselves where the Savior is. It has nothing to do with something coming to save us, and so many people, unfortunately, are still looking to the skies for some type of Savior. But that the true Savior is within yourself. And some people take that a bit out of context and think that you're acting as God then.
Oh,
but
not at all.
No, I think the message is muddied up there, because it has nothing to do with thinking that you are God, but understanding that there is nothing between you and God, or the Creator, or whatever way that you want to look at it or define it within.
Yeah, I would agree, and I believe that nobody can save us but ourselves, and, if they're waiting for Jesus to come and save them, my message to them is I believe that he did that 2,000 years ago, and why would he come and do it again? It's now our turn to accept that consciousness into our lives and walk the path that has been set by examples like by him and Gandhi and other significant leaders that we've had in our past.
It's time to stand up and take personal responsibility.
Right, and find the leadership within ourselves rather than looking outside of ourselves for that leader.
Definitely.
Time is to bridge that gap between us and our leaders and have that within ourselves.
And we all do. It's just a matter of reigniting it and understanding what it is.
Right.
And that we have that power.
Yeah, and that's kind of just behind, my website is, to consciously govern ourselves rather than giving that power away and that energy away to other people to have them govern us. And that, I think that's the core message behind the film. And to do that peacefully, non-violently, and as Brian Wilson, I think that was the name of the fellow that was speaking in the film as well too, talked about the revolution of consciousness, and I believe that has to take place in order to do that.
Yeah, I completely, I can't argue with anything that you've said with that, because it's just, again, coming from within, that's how I feel about the situation in itself. We had also talked a bit about the fact that there are still going to be people that do need to be governed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Whether it's a choice or it's... there's also the idea of other people not taking responsibility of people within their own community as well. Taking care of our elderly, taking care of our disabled and whatnot is something that we should be all doing as a community. Trying to take away from the original term community. It's not exactly a nice one, but if we were to take it as common unity for now, I can live with that. But the idea that maybe that government can go back to what it was meant for, which would be for the state to take care of those who cannot take care of themselves, and for the adults to be adults, and then it doesn't lose, maybe it can go back to the original thought of what the state was meant to be in the first place.
Well, my view is that we still need the state right now, because we still have millions and millions of people who are either unable or unwilling to govern themselves. And so by default, that falls within the purview of the state. Now, does that mean the state will be there forever? I don't know. Perhaps, perhaps not. I believe that as more people start to govern themselves and start to build what I would deem true communities of like-minded individuals, then I still believe that the burden would fall upon those self-governing individuals to also look after those who are unable or unwilling, aka the children. And as a parent, we have a responsibility to look after the children, not just the ones that we brought into this world ourselves, but those within our community. And as this shift goes, I can see more and more people stepping up and taking responsibility, and at that point reducing and hopefully to a point completely eliminating the need for a government over time. But it's going to be a process.
Yeah, it's something that I think we're moving towards in order to leave for our children. My hope and my intention is that the life that I will leave for my children, that it will be very different from what we have here. And that may be a stretch for some to imagine, but I don't see the world being the way that it is when my children are at the adult stage, and they're both 6 and 10. And that's my, I guess that's my goal, but I think that I see that's a goal for a lot of people.
I agree, and ironically, we have a model that we can use to see what that looks like. And, I believe, it may not look exactly like this model, but the First Nations people govern themselves this way for millennia. And, I believe that, we're going to need their help to make this shift, because they know how to do this already, and they've demonstrated it for thousands of years how to live this way. And we may not necessarily have to be nomadic gatherers and that kind of stuff, but as a model or a framework to build relationships between families and our communities, and how to govern ourselves and how to look after one another, it was perfectly demonstrated.
I have to agree with you. Whenever I come to a thought of how or what other base we could look at to see, the tribal way seems to be the best way. It seems to be the most loving way for both human beings or individuals, for animal, for the earth itself. It's the only way that I see is working is the tribal way, which makes a lot of sense why they were wiping them all out for so very long, why all the genocide happened, because if the majority of us understood that way of life and lived it, then there would be absolutely no need for the corporation at all whatsoever, which there isn't. We understand it's a fiction, and so I have to agree with you completely that would be the template to use. That would be the idea that the tribals have been trying to tell us this for years. When will you understand that you cannot eat money? That would be coming from the Cree quote. You cannot eat money.
Yeah, and the corporate world operates on a model of scarcity, and corporations love producing scarcity because they need that in order to make profits. A model of prosperity, where most people want to live, is not conducive to corporate profits at all, and so there's a conflict. And we can't continue to support one model while wishing for another. And so I think for myself, I didn't want scarcity, I want prosperity, so I had to abandon the scarcity model, and so now I'm trying to work towards that prosperity model. The challenge I have is I need other people to come along with me, because I can't do it by myself.
Yeah, no, definitely you can't do it by yourself. It is very much a group effort.
Yeah.
It's something that... And it must be very reassuring to see that you have a lot of people that are ready to come with you now.
Oh, it's to no end. I am just overjoyed to see people who are starting to resonate with what I'm talking about. And I'm not suggesting that I have all the answers or any of that kind of stuff either. I have no idea what this is going to look like, but I do believe that together we will build something that's greater than all of us put together, and it will be perfect, and it will serve us very, very well if we can, remove ourselves from the trap that, revolutions usually have had in, the past. So
I honestly believe that we're past that. I don't think the same trap is something that we're going to fall into. And in honesty, when I think of where we're going as a whole, as a collective, I don't have any fear. I don't have any doubt. I don't have any. The odd thing sneaks in, but that's like just keeping you in check, sort of. But whenever I look at this model of a plan of what we can do and what we're putting into real life action, there's nothing but beautiful things that can come out of it. Yeah. And when I search, I don't have to search for resonation. It's just there. It's like a knowing. I know this is going to work. This is something that everybody can do. This is something that everybody should be doing. And a lot of people will complain, oh, well, there's not enough time in a day. Well, if you don't come home and you don't turn on the television, then there's more than enough time in a day.
Yeah. Me quitting my job 5 years ago freed me up freed up my time so that I could do all kinds of stuff. And, it all comes down, if you're not willing to make the time, then you won't have the time. And this comes back to us as creators, or co-creators, is, we can make time. We just have to be consciously aware of where we spend our time. So.
Exactly. So I would say that it comes down to taking back your free will and understanding that there is always a choice. There's always a choice, and we have to really feel from within what choices we're making and whether we're making the right choice for ourselves, and to stop following the grain of society, especially if it's going against us. And you can see that it's going against the way that society acts, is going against the grain of our nature, because of the idea that, you see all these, aside from the idea of GMO foods and the spraying of chemtrails and this, that, and the other, all of our disease is actually dis-ease that comes from within. And so many of us are sick and dying of cancers and different diseases. It's a reflection of having to go against what is natural to us, I would say.
Well, not only that, but I've also found, learning from Cari and other homeopaths too, that, our current medical system only treats symptoms, and a lot of the physical symptoms that we have has a root cause in our emotions and our intellect. It's the way we think, and because we're not dealing with our emotions and letting go of them, the body then has to store it somewhere, and it stores it, which then manifests in what we call disease, or the body being at dis-ease. And that's part of letting go of that emotion. That we have to process it so that we can get back to our body being capable of actually performing the way it was designed to. And I believe it can do way more than what we think it can. And those are lessons I learned in martial arts. No question that our own beliefs significantly limit our capacity to perform and do things and create and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things I learned is, as a martial arts instructor, was how to challenge and kind of gently nudge and push people to start breaking through some of those mental barriers and self-limiting beliefs that they have.
Yeah, because that's part of the biggest step, is understanding that you are your biggest limitation.
Absolutely. And the beautiful part of all this is, and I tell them, if you think you can't do it, you know what? You're right. If you think you can, you know what? You're right. Either way, you're always right.
And that's what I teach my children. The minute you say you can't, and you see it, children, they give up, right?
Yep.
They try to do something, and then they turn around and they're like, I can't do it. I give up. I'm not trying anymore. And that's what I say to them. If you're giving up, then that's right. You're not going to succeed. You have to tell yourself that you can do this. You are going to accomplish this. As soon as you put that negative into it, then no, you're not going to, and you've already written the end of your story.
Yep. And I've experienced that many times in my own life too, and particularly over the last 5 years. I can't count how many times I got to the point and I thought, you know what? What in the hell am I doing? I just can't believe, I'm doing all this work and putting up with all this crap and dealing with all this anxiety and fear and all that kind of stuff. And then I sit down and, I kind of process the feelings and realize, okay, this is why I'm doing it, and then I keep going. But there are many days where I felt like giving up, because it just, what's the point? And, I'm extremely grateful that, I didn't give up, because I wouldn't be here talking to you today if I did.
Exactly. It seems like it's very easy to give in to that idea of giving up, though, too, eh?
Oh, yeah.
It would just be so much easier if I didn't have to go through any of this, which I'm glad always brings me back to reincarnation, and I sit there and go, yeah, well, guess what you're going to have to go through next time because you decided to opt out.
Yeah. Well, Cari and I, we tell each other, you know what? This is the last time. We're not doing this again. We're getting it right this time, damn it. So, we're doing everything we can, and, the amount of change and, work and all that kind of stuff is immense, but we're telling ourselves we're getting it right this time.
No, that's, it's funny, that's how we feel about it too, because we're seeing our mistakes and then wanting to correct them, not just giving in to them and going, that's the way that I am. No, this isn't the way that I am. This is the way that I've allowed myself to act. Right. And I don't have to act this way anymore, but I have to make a point of understanding that and accepting that, wait a minute, I have control over me. And we still struggle with it. It's not that we're perfect by any means. My goodness. I mean, I still freak out occasionally. And that's the thing. If you're looking at there to be some kind of perfection, it's never going to happen. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. Your journey is what makes you who you are. You're going to learn. Somebody had said to me once that I don't need to learn anything new. I've got everything down pat. And I got sad. I did. I felt very sad for that person because, oh wow, to not learn anymore. How boring.
Yeah, I'm excited. I found that I've learned a lot over the last 10 years of my life. And the more I learn, the less I know. Like there is so much to learn. Like a person would need 1,000 lifetimes to learn it all, I'm sure. I just have, I'm kind of at the point right now where I'm learning at such a high pace. I have to stop every once in a while because I can't hold on. I can't process as fast. I need time, and I need to slow down every once in a while and just absorb it and assimilate it and figure it out and process it. And otherwise I just love to sit in front of a book or a computer and just read all day long, but I just can't do that. I still have to live and experience and work on my relationships and all that kind of stuff too. So.
Balance. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Being able to, because we get the same way too, and it's sometimes, I sit back and I say, it's a wonder my brain hasn't just exploded.
Yeah.
Because there's those days where you can't possibly, you're just starving for all the information. Your soul, it wants this, but you have to pay attention to the other things too. You have to pay attention to what's outside of the computer and the book, and make sure you keep those connections with the earth and the people that you love and strangers for that fact. It's just, there has to be that balance, because if you're teetering too much one way or the other, you might lose the plot a bit.
Yeah, and that's what the Christ consciousness is all about too, is balance, bringing balance into your life. And I know we talked about the feminine and the masculine, even bringing those energies into balance within the self as well too.
And that's something that sometimes confuses a few people, and I think that, again, a bit of the idea of there being some ego attached to it. Well, I don't have to embrace my feminine side, but no, you do. You do, because we have it. Well, why does it have to be feminine and masculine? Why can't it all? That's just another box. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that it very much is the idea that we've been giving these, people say, well, my partner is my other half. But that's not true. You have both halves within you. Again, this is my very humble opinion in this, of where I've come to. And that when you realize that you have that feminine and masculine within yourself, and you're able to conjoin them and bring them together and make peace within yourself, I think that's where great things start to come forth. When you bring yourself, and you're not going to stay balanced like that all the time. Obviously, it's a bit of a struggle. But understanding that there is that feminine, masculine side, and being able to resolve the issue between the two almost. It helps you to become a better individual, but a more well-rounded and balanced individual.
For the first part of my life, I was very masculine. I view the masculine and the feminine energy, masculine being the provider and the protector, where the feminine is the nurturer and, those kind of qualities.
Mm-hmm. Almost like a guidance in the feminine too.
Yeah. I view the masculine as, the provider and the protector, where the feminine energy is more of the nurturer and, those kind of energies, right? Mm-hmm. And for my life, I spent a lot of my life being just the masculine, and it wasn't until I had the experience of recovering from my depression that I really started to get in touch with the feminine side of me, and that was more in the feelings and, having the ability to relate to how other people are feeling allowed me to then have those kind of qualities within myself, and that significantly increases satisfaction in my own life. And, in a roundabout way, I kind of view the world as having to go through a similar type process, and, I see the Christ impulse bringing that balance, and within those energies within the self, right? So.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you on that for sure. Now, what's the next step for Rob?
Oh, that's a great question. Not really sure what's next yet. I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow, and I'm sure I'll be pointed in one direction or another. But for now, I feel like I have a opportunity to teach people and share, my philosophies and my experiences, and I've kind of reached out to people through the film, and now I'll try to do that through my website. And
now let's direct the listeners to your website, if you wouldn't mind giving us all of your contact info that you want to share to join people into what you're doing, and to give them the opportunity to take a look at all the facets that you're using.
Okay, well, I have my website. It's consciousselfgovernance.ca, and the intent behind the website is I actually have a public and a private side to the site. And the public side, I kind of have to recognize that, people are still vulnerable and they still need protecting. I still have a duty similar to what the Queen has. And so, I'll post information out there that, I've found publicly, so if people want to do their own research and that kind of stuff, then, the information is all going to be there. It's not all up yet. We're still working on trying. The private side of the website is going to be for people who want to take full responsibility and full accountability for their life. And there is where I will share my knowledge and experience and, research and, my philosophies, and try to help people through that process, recognizing I can't really do it for them, but maybe they can find a gem or two to implement in their own life. And, I had to do that just to protect the public, because there are information that people just can't handle right now. So when they're ready, they'll sign up and they'll ask for help.
Yeah, definitely. People will come to you or come to their own understanding when they do, and move out from there. Yeah. And I think that's very responsible of you to be doing it that way. Some people might not understand it, but like I said, a lot of that's ego-driven.
Yeah. And my team I have a team of people who've been through my workshops, and they've taken significant steps in their own lives as well too, and so they're helping me with this. And if I can find other people who are ready to be examples, and the Conscious Self-Governance page on Facebook using that to kind of interface with people because, the social media is to be honest, a fantastic way of networking with people and getting the word out. So we actually use that to market the film, and so I've been using that to try to respond to feedback from the film and to start building that relationship. It all comes down to relationships, right? So
definitely.
As we build that relationship, and if it interests them, then they can continue on with that relationship by going to the website. But the page is mainly to start building that relationship and, setting some boundaries and establishing, what we're trying to do and what it's all about. So if people are searching, they can start there, but in the end, it'll all filter back to the website.
So we know how to get a hold of Rob of the Family Paget. And is that how you're doing it, is of the family?
Nope.
Oh, is it changed?
No, it actually was never that way. I did use the word, Rob of the Paget family.
Okay.
But when I looked up the definition of the word of, it actually means apart from. So I didn't want to be apart, like away from the family. I wanted to be in the family. So I actually changed it, and I actually used Rob in the Paget family. Because I believe the family is the most powerful organization the world has ever seen, and so I want to try to reestablish my family and the domain that family has dominion over. Because the corporate states have been trying to destroy the family, and there's a reason why they've been doing that. It's because it's very powerful and threatens them, right? So.
Definitely. It's better to have children in daycare and both parents working than to have stay-at-home moms and dads that love their jobs coming home to, happy children that are taught truths instead of lies.
Yeah. Or even better yet, the dad being home as well too all the time.
Yeah, I have to say, my husband went from working a factory job to working a co-creation position, and the change has been completely amazing in this house. He's able to get up with we're all able to get up as a family, have breakfast together, talk, walk the kids to school, come home. He comes home at a decent hour. Now, realistically, what we'd like to do in the future is a bit different, where he is both of us working at home, right? Working on the homestead. Yep. That's our ultimate goal, but baby steps.
Yep, takes time. It takes years. Like, we've been through this now for 5-6 years, and it's, like you said, it's a journey. It all takes time.
Definitely. And I would really like to just thank you so very much for coming onto the show and for spending the time that you have spent with me today. It's been beautiful, and I'm happy for this new friendship, this new kinship. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I'm very interested and willing to spend time working on relationships like this, and I recognize it takes time and it takes work, and you don't put in the time, you don't put in the work, then there is no relationship. So I'm willing to do that with individuals like yourself, so that we can work together to build something that we're looking for. So.
Exactly, and I have to say that to everybody that's listening out there, I hope you really heard those words, and I hope that they resonated with you the way that they resonated with me. We all really do need to take time to build true relationships with each other, to attain that ultimate goal that we are all starving for at this point, and to not take these little miracles for granted, and to follow our hearts, because as you can see, with me today is Rob in the Family Paget. who is a perfect example of someone who has followed his soul talk and is living it. And because of that, he has been able to give us, alongside Ben and Dan Stewart, this beautiful film that shows his journey and will definitely serve as a complete inspiration to so many people. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Do you have any last words for the listeners?
I guess it would be a word of encouragement. Like, I know for me, it was hard work and it was difficult. We went through this with very little support. I think things have really shifted now, so I think there's going to be a lot of support for people who want to make these kind of changes. There are people out there, they will show up when you need them, and just trust that it will flow, and it'll all be good. I believe this is all going to be a very worthwhile process to go through. I'm very excited about where this is all going to take us.
I completely agree. And I think I'll, again, thank you so much for coming on to the show. You've been listening to Lifting the Veil with Cari-Lee, and I'm just going to leave you with these words. All that is left only to UNGRIP. Thank you so much, and you'll be hearing from me soon.